5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go live. You to be interviewed. All right. Let's see. We should be live now. Good morning, everyone. Very nice of you to join in at this hour for our first webinar of the 2022-2024 Euroculture intake. My name is Jelmer, and I am joined by
Isabela. Hi.
So you're a current student of the program right now, yeah?
Yeah, I'm currently doing my master's in Euroculture here in Groningen. I joined this year, in 2021.
Awesome. Very good. Very nice to meet you. For the first section of our presentation today, we'll be going through more or less what the program is about. So how do you apply? What is Euroculture even? Maybe to take it back a step. What is Euroculture? How do you apply? What are some tips and tricks that are useful for making a successful application? And during the second part of our presentation today, we'll be able to have a chat with the actual grad student, Isabela, and we'll also be joined online by two of our other grad students, maybe in the Q&A section as well. Right. So first of all, I think I'll just start the presentation now. Let's see. There we go. All right. So what is Euroculture exactly? So Euroculture is a 2-year, 120 ECTS master program organized by a consortium of 8 universities in Europe. So we'll go over which universities those are in a second. But wherever you go in Europe, the entire program will be in English. So you don't need to speak the native language of the country in order to join the program anywhere. Our master generally receives very high reviews. It's considered a top-rated MA program. And the topic of our master is really focused on this idea of European integration and specifically kind of at the political, cultural, and societal level. At the end of the program, you'll receive a joint master's degree, which means you'll get a diploma from 2 of our 8 partner universities, depending on your choice of universities. And this is one diploma. So maybe one thing that people sometimes get confused about is that this is not a double degree program, at the end of which you will receive 2 diplomas for 2 different programs. But at the end of this program, you will receive 1 diploma that is signed and certified by 2 different universities. Right. So why would you really choose the Euroculture program? There's a lot of different reasons for joining Euroculture, and I hope we'll be able to get into that with Isabela and the other grad students as well in a bit. But some of the main things that people point out is that it has a rather unique nature. It's mobility, flexibility, interdisciplinary and international character. As a student, you learn by doing, let's say, more unconventional things than just studying. So you'll be moving around a lot, and you'll really be sort of having these first-hand experiences with the cultures you're studying. I think that is something that sets Euroculture apart from some of the other master programs that might be covering topics of European integration. So Euroculture is rated as a Master of Excellence by the European Commission, which comes with a certain prestige, but it's also been recently, last year, been awarded the sort of title of success story by the European Commission for the, let's say, efforts that the program undertakes in these topics of European integration and specifically in these cultural, political, and societal fields. For those who might be familiar with the Dutch educational system, it's recognized as a top master in the Keuzegids. So this is a student survey that more or less indicates good programs in Dutch universities. And in the Dutch system, the National Student Survey, or the NSA in Dutch, it's also rated above the national average. That might not mean as much to you as the high evaluations that alumni usually give to the program. So more than 90% of our alumni end the program by having a positive experience. And, I'm a Euroculture alumni myself, and I can say that this is more or less true for every year that I've been in touch with so far. Generally, Euroculture students are very happy with their program at the end as well. So, like I said, Euroculture is hosted by 8 different universities in Europe and 4 universities, which I should add now, outside of Europe as well. Now, which universities might that be? That would be the first 4 here. So let's say the secretariat of our entire network is hosted in Groningen, which is why I mentioned some Dutch things in particular. So one of the universities you can start, but you don't have to start in, of course, is the University of Groningen. You can also go to the University of Deusto in Bilbao. This would be in Spain. Then there's the University of Göttingen in Germany, the University of Krakow in Poland, University of Olomouc in the Czech Republic, University of Strasbourg in France, University of Udine in Italy, and the University of Uppsala in Sweden. So, like I said, you can start in any one of these 8 universities, and you attend at least 2 of them. So, in your first semester, when you start the program, you will start in, let's say, one of these 4 or one of these 4. But after that, you'll be able to move to any one of the other ones. So if you start in, let's say, Germany, for example, you might then want to move to Poland, but you could also move to France or Uppsala. You can attend any one of the 8 partner universities in our consortium. And that's in fact a requirement as well. It's not possible to stay in the same university for 2 semesters in your first year. Then there's also 4 universities that actually are outside of Europe. So that would be IUPUI in Indianapolis in the US. There's Osaka University in Osaka, Japan. There's Pune University in Pune, India. And there's UNAM in Mexico City. So I should note right now, this is something that sometimes confuses people. These research tracks are sponsored by European taxpayer money. And as a result, it's only available for EU or EEA students. So if you are a non-European applicant, you will unfortunately not be able to join for the research semesters that are non-European partners. So Euroculture is an interdisciplinary and flexible program. And with flexibility comes in multiple ways. Because first of all, like I said, you can travel to different universities. But also, in terms of the course content, there's a lot of room for you as a student to make choices when you join the program. So, for example, each university, and you can find more about this on our website as well, has their own research specialization and their own distinct profile that sets them apart from the other universities. While each university will offer you the same baseline of skills, so you will learn more or less the same set of core skills everywhere, you might have 1 or 2 elective courses at each university that is more tailored to your own study interest, and that will allow you to sort of tailor the program to your needs. And that's definitely something you'll be coming across if you join Euroculture. You'll be faced with a lot of choices of what you want to do, where you want to go, and let's say that's definitely attractive to a lot of different people. Right. And as a result of all these different choices you can make, there's also a lot of different master's thesis topics that you can follow. There's a lot of different elective courses that really can range from cultural studies perspectives to really learn sort of like hardcore international relations, institutional politics kind of courses. That really depends on the profile of the university you go to, but also on the profile of you as a student and what you want to bring to the course. So, for example, some of these MA thesis topics you can see here is Europe in the global context. So that's really about more institutional politics of hard power, soft power, and how diplomatic discourses operate. Then, of course, you can go and take a more cultural studies perspective and do a critical study of identity construction, for example, in Wales. But you could also extend this to other regions of Europe. You are, as a student, very free to choose your own research interest for your master's thesis. A topic that's becoming increasingly relevant as well is like migration studies and the idea of European citizenship. So conceptualizing new ideas about that as part of your MA thesis would also be a very valuable and very relevant topic now. And of course, There's the idea of culture, heritage, and memory. So maybe something more of a historiographical approach. So reshaping public Holocaust commemoration in Austria and Germany. That could be one perspective that you take on your master thesis. So the mobility is one thing, but because Euroculture tends to attract a lot of different students from a lot of different cultures, there's also a very international classroom. And I should note also quite a small scale classroom. So Euroculture usually doesn't have groups in any one of our partner universities of more than 25 people. And during this mobility, you will maybe be faced with, I don't know, between 10 different nationalities if you are in a group of 25, 10 to 15 nationalities, depending on the year. So we're really, let's say, not seeing any kind of, let's say, dominance of one particular nationality in the course, though there are, of course, some common ones that would be in their own country, for example. So that's entirely possible. But in general, you'll be faced with many different students from many different cultural backgrounds. And especially once you start moving around through Europe, this really comes into this idea that our international classroom is kind of like a laboratory for cultural exchange. And that's really the perspective that we want to take as well when it comes to our learning. So I've already thrown a lot of information at you. So maybe it's good to sort of go over how our curriculum is designed foundationally and just kind of explain what everything is step by step. So you are currently interested in applying for the Euroculture Master. What do you do? Well, first of all, you should go to our website at euroculturemaster.eu, which we will link at the end of the presentation as well. And there you will find an overview of our different universities, what you can learn at each of them, and what their research profile might be. Of course, you might also just be interested in studying a particular national context. So maybe you're very interested in Germany and want to go to Germany. That is in itself a valid reason to go and see what the University of Göttingen might offer you. Regardless of where you go, so regardless of which choices you make, where you go, you will receive more or less the same foundational courses. So maybe Isabela, you're a current first semester student. What are the kinds of courses that you're currently following right now?
We're learning politics, cultural history, cultural construction, legal construction, and error competences. So it's an overview and it will give you the background you need to go to your second, third, and fourth semester with a solid background and understanding the EU as a whole. It's politics, it's the cultural part, legal part, everything, the whole construction of the of the EU.
Right, that's exactly right. Thank you for pointing it out. So maybe sort of there's definitely a focus in the first semester on getting everyone up to the same level. Because we accept students from a wide variety of different academic backgrounds, it's definitely necessary in the first semester to get everyone up to speed on the different topics of Euroculture. So, for example, if you come from a very cultural studies perspective or you studied a language or something like this, you might not be very familiar with political science or even legal studies at all. And in those cases, we want to be able to offer you a basic understanding of at least all of these different fields. So you can have a discussion with somebody from a completely different academic field about a certain European topic and both approach it from a shared understanding of that topic. So that's really what the first semester is about. It's about building a foundation that helps you understand Euroculture students everywhere and to be able to think about these topics from a wide variety of perspectives. We also take some time and spend that on transferable skills. So that would be more soft skills like presentation, maybe paper writing and academic writing, things that really are useful in any kind of academic context, and also, in fact, in many professional contexts as well. Euroculture is very interested in helping its students be prepared for the labor market. We'll be going over that in a little bit as well, so stay tuned for that. So after you finish your first semester, you finished all your courses, you managed to complete everything by the skin of your teeth or very, easily, depending on how good a student you are. You then have to make your choice for the second semester. So you will receive information from us, and we will provide you sort of with an information booklet about which choices you can make in your second semester. I should note that we distinguish between Erasmus Mundus applicants in this regard and self-financing applicants. If you end up receiving the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, like Isabela here, then you will need to make your first and second choices before you even start the program. So that's something that you should definitely be aware of, is only students who are self-financing, and that's usually the majority of our students. We have more self-financing students than we do Erasmus Mundus students. The self-financing ones, they have to make a choice during their first semester, but if you are an Erasmus Mundus student, you sign a contract with us, and your universities are set before the program starts. In any case, in the second semester, you'll have more opportunity to specialize. So whereas in the first semester you will get a little bit of everything and prepare you for different academic fields, in the second semester you can start really pursuing your own interests a bit more. You will receive a seminar in different methodological fields, so maybe one week you'll be discussing, let's say, interview skills or how to conduct surveys, but in the next week you might have room to discuss the methodology that fits your research interests, maybe already for your master's thesis, if you're that far in your planning already. You can combine this with specialized seminars. So in the second semester, you'll be able to make some choices in terms of seminars, not only by choosing a specific university, but also within that university, you are usually able to make some choices in terms of which seminars you want to follow. Usually we don't really get into too much detail about what those seminars are in advance because they change every year. So maybe you think, well, that's kind of vague. What's a specialized seminar? Unfortunately, because the program changes everywhere, we can't go into changes every year, I should say. We won't go into too much detail about what specialized seminars are. However, you should know that they are closely aligned with the research interests of that university. So for example, in Sweden, you will find that the university, that the Euroculture program there is based in the theology department. And because it's based in the theology department, you might have a research seminar on religions in Europe. Whereas if you go to the Houston Bilbao, they will have an emphasis as a Spanish-speaking country on the relations between Europe and Latin America. So those are two kinds of different research seminars that you might have depending on the university you go to. But what specifically will be the content of each seminar, you will just have to wait and see until you start the program, because teachers like to change things up every year and approach the same topic maybe from slightly different perspectives. So finally, you get some teaching in academic methodology, you get specialized seminars, and there's also a course in project management, because this is a useful skill in basically all contexts, both professionally and academically. So that's something to keep in mind for sure. Maybe during this course you'll be asked to host an event. Maybe you'll be asked to prepare some kind of document for a specific organization. Maybe it can be all kinds of different projects. And in fact, that project is definitely hosted by you as the students with a group of your fellow students. And during this course, you will also get very hands-on sort of skill training and, well, how do you manage a project? What's a good way to approach things like, setting a good timeline for yourself? What is a feasible goal? Like, how do you set a goal for yourself? How do you make an event that is actually implementable? How can you do something that actually works? These kinds of things, these kinds of questions you'll discuss during your project management course in Eurocompetence 2, it's called. So after that, you will have completed your first year if you manage to get through everything. And at the end of the year, we host the intensive program. We'll go over what that means in a little bit. But in short, it's a summer school for Euroculture students where all of the different students from all of the different universities come together in one big academic conference where everyone goes on excursions together. And also at the end, there will be a gala dinner. In preparation for this program, you also write a paper, and the best of these papers also get published in a volume online every year. So if you have academic ambitions, it's definitely worthwhile to write a good paper for this course, so you can also prepare and have another publication ready before you even finish your master's. Right, so that will be the end of the first year. In the third semester, so once you've finished your studies at University 1 and 2, you'll be having to face the most, let's say, difficult or most varied choice that you have in the program. So what do you do in your third semester? There's actually a lot of different options. So first of all, you can follow a research track. So that's mentioned here, the research semester and the thesis proposal. That's what you do in the third semester, where you follow a research internship and specialized research seminars with one of our 8 European partner universities. Additionally, you also do some preparation work for your thesis writing, which is why the thesis proposal is mentioned here. Additionally, you can also choose to, instead of a research track, follow an internship with a professional organization, maybe an NGO, maybe a European institution. If you're interested in what kinds of internships Euroculture students do, we ask you to check out the website, but also the Euroculture magazine, which you can also find links to on the website as well, which is our student paper. And our student paper also does interviews with current students and explains what their research track experience is like. How do you get one? Of course, the program also supports you with this. But if you're very curious about, well, what does that look like? Definitely check out our website, our social media, or send us an email at euroculture@ug.nl. So, like I said, there's a research track and a professional track. So the professional track will be doing a work placement with an organization and also writing your thesis proposal in the meantime. And finally, there's the non-European research track. So going to one of our non-European partner universities in Japan, Mexico, the US, or India. And there you would also follow research seminars and sort of really get to know a different non-European culture within the Euroculture network. So, and of course, finally, for your fourth semester, after you successfully finish that, you'll be going back to your first or your second university. So the one from semester 1 or the one from semester 2, that's your choice. And there you can finish your thesis, and also you will get one additional course that helps you prepare for what you do after the program, which is called Project Application Training. During this course, you'll be asked to prepare a mock project application. If you're interested in academia, you'll be asked to write a PhD proposal. If you're more interested in professional placements and finding jobs, instead it will be an application for funding for some kind of project within the area of your interest. That's up to you to design. Right, so that's really the basic overview of the program and how it works. Now I just want to talk about some of the other highlights of the program. So like I said, during all of these 4 semesters, you'll be forced to engage in a lot of group work, a lot of group activities. We really have an emphasis on active learning in small scale classes. So we tend to put people together and ask them to write maybe a paper together. We ask them to write maybe, let's say, a policy paper is one of the things that you have to write in a group in the first semester. As Isabela, I think you just finished yours, right?
Yeah, we finished yesterday. The deadline is today.
Right, so we're doing really current. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up this traumatizing experience for you. But yeah, so that's really what we like to do in Euroculture, is because we're interested in having you interact with many different cultures and developing intercultural skills. It's important that we have assignments that put you together and force you to work together. So that's really an emphasis on the program. You won't find many courses that are very much about reproduction of knowledge. So you won't have to learn a lot of different lists. There will be readings, of course, academic readings. Some say maybe too many. But, they're important to giving you context on specific topics. So that's really how it operates. Usually you would have to read papers and sort of read these texts as background, and then that will be sort of the basis for discussion or project-based learning. So that's really the model for a lot of different courses. Right. So like I mentioned before, we focus on the employability of graduates. So Euroculture as an arts program is of course very interested in the employability of graduates because it's not always so easy for students in the background of arts, media studies to find employment. However, what we note is that students with our background are generally very successful in the labor market after the program. So, and that's in part because they carried out a work placement maybe in the third semester. So, maybe some of the examples of placement providers that might be interesting to you would be in international governments, or really like the European Commission. We have actually, I think, multiple interns doing internships in Brussels around the European Commission right now. But of course, if you're more interested in national diplomacy and national institutions, it's also entirely possible to follow an internship with a Ministry for Foreign Affairs or Public Affairs. Maybe the Dutch representation to the EU. That's one thing you could consider. Of course, there's also more cultural diplomacy and cultural institutions. So some of the organizations that we work with more commonly are mentioned here. So NEDIAR, the British Council, and the Institut Français, those are all kind of recurring internship placement providers for Euroculture students. And of course, there's more advocacy, research, or media-centered topics. So maybe like Politico is one. European Movement International. So yeah, those are just some examples of work placement providers. There's a very long list on our website as well. It's I don't want to say it's hundreds of placements. So there's a lot of different options because you choose, right? We don't provide you with a placement provider. You have to look for them yourselves. But generally, Euroculture students have a good reputation when trying to apply for internships. And especially if you're interested in European politics, as an Erasmus Mundus Master, as a program funded by the European Commission, it's definitely a slight advantage that you are in one of those programs that they fund themselves. So that's something to keep in mind if you're interested.
I'd like also to add that you are in contact with these organizations since the first semester. So at least here in Groningen, I don't know how it works in the other universities, but we just had a meeting with different organizations to know them, to know how they work, what they do, to get to know more about the application process for the internship. So I think it's really useful to be in touch and to prepare yourself because it's a huge step in your master's program. So yeah, for me it's really interesting to get to know those institutions from now so I can prepare myself and look for different opportunities.
Yes, so that's a very good point. So maybe because of COVID, it has been a little bit more difficult in the last 2 years. But usually in Euroculture, we throw alumni at you at a breakneck pace. So we definitely very much appreciate our alumni, and we'd like them to be in touch with our current students. Maybe also just to expand their own network. But of course, it might also be very good in terms of information, and maybe somebody who's worked with the European Commission before might be able to help you write an application that is more likely to succeed by giving you some kind of useful tip. We definitely think it's very important that the Euroculture network as a whole remains connected with each other. And that's not just current students, that's also graduates. So we foster this, among other things, by Facebook or LinkedIn groups. We try to reach out to current students, maybe to give presentations on their academic experience, but also their professional experience after the program. So these are ways in which we think we can help you become part of a network that will help you professionalize yourself to a greater extent than you would otherwise be able to. So yes, thank you for mentioning that. That's for sure relevant. Especially this professionalization also comes into play with the relevant skills that we try to teach you, especially group work, conflict resolution, and project management are skills that are very highly valued by employers. And especially when, for example, what we've heard in the past is students presenting their CV to companies, and those companies call the references at Euroculture maybe, and they ask, hey, what's project management? What did they do? So we know for a fact that employers are very interested in trying to understand what project management you do during Euroculture, and they see the value in these kinds of things. So it's definitely a highlight of the program that we try to help you teach, and that we try to help you learn those skills through doing, through practice. Yeah. This is a good statistic. 70% of alumni find a relevant job within 3 months. So that's quite a good result, especially compared to maybe some of the arts programs that you would otherwise see. From my experience as a Dutch student, I would mostly have to rely on Dutch statistics, but those are definitely going to be a bit lower than this. And what sets us apart are these soft skills and project training that will definitely help you succeed in making a successful application, and it will also greatly help you in building a career and maintaining a position within an organization. Where do Euroculture students tend to find work? Well, that's a good question. It's diverse, also because the background of our students is very diverse. But there are some themes that we come across here. So we have a group of about 22% that work in consultancy, marketing, or PR. So as it turns out, all this presentation that you have to do, all these skills in terms of, learning to communicate properly, writing academically, these actually make you very well prepared to work in consultancy, marketing, or public relations. So these skills are immensely useful in giving you the relevant skills to succeed in that field. Another one is education, of course. We should add that this also includes research. So both teaching, maybe in some cases, high school teacher, but in most cases, working in education can be in education-related organizations, but it can also be in academia itself. So we have a sizable minority of students that continue, for example, with a PhD after their studies, even though we should note that Euroculture is not technically a research master's by the Dutch legal standards of the term. It is still entirely possible, and in fact, quite a good step towards building a PhD career if you study Euroculture. Finally, there's a big sector that we could point out, of course, is politics and international relations, and I think that shouldn't really be of a surprise to anyone when you think of the fact that our students can do internships with the European Commission, maybe the European Parliament, all kinds of international diplomatic organizations. The fact that many people continue into careers after that maybe isn't the most surprising thing. But of course, there's also some other small categories of employment where people end up in. So security and anti-terrorism, that's an interesting one. So this could be, for example, with human rights organizations. If a student has these kinds of backgrounds as part of their profile when they come into the program, it's definitely possible to grow those competencies and then develop into that direction after the program. So Euroculture can really be that stepping stone that you need for your next step in your career, even if it doesn't necessarily seem like it's directly the most relevant to your own academic background. Right. Yes, well, I think I've already touched on this, but I'll just reiterate it here. Euroculture is really a community of students, teachers, and alumni. Usually it's very easy and in fact encouraged for Euroculture students to maybe stay in touch with their supervisors, with their teachers, maybe to tell them, hey, look, I found a job here. What's going on with you? There's a very direct and very open line of communication between teachers and students. Not so much a very hierarchical experience as you would see in maybe some other programs. So that is really the idea of the network. It's students, teachers, and alumni reaching out to each other and trying to support each other, maybe by coming across interesting conferences, interesting job offers. That's the way we like to keep in touch. I've already kind of mentioned this as well. So this is the IP. This is actually the example of the 2018-2020 IP. So this is my IP, actually, as a Euroculture graduate. I think I'm somewhere in the background over there. Oh no, I'm looking at my phone. Well, anyway, so this is sort of a great networking opportunity, right? So as you can see, it's about uniting students from all these different cohorts, putting them together and giving them the chance to exchange ideas, but also exchange opportunities with each other. During the IP, there's not only the paper presentation or just a gala dinner, but there's also excursions to different places in the surrounding region, depending on who's organizing the IP that year. Additionally, there's also things like panel discussions or maybe a few workshops as well that will be very helpful in building up some kind of professional skills for you. And of course, last but not least, it really gives you the opportunity to make some new friends or to reunite with some old ones, because after your first semester, you'll have to leave many of your current friends that you built up during the first semester behind. And it's a great opportunity to put everyone together in one big room and have a good time with each other. Right, so these are just some pictures of the Brno excursion. So this was organized in Olomouc. The IP in 2019, this would be. But of course, during the program, we also take trips to, for example, like Brussels, if you're in the region close to that. At least, unfortunately, that's
didn't happen because of COVID, but we had the presentations online. But yeah, maybe next year you'll be lucky enough to go to Brussels.
Yes. Right now, we fully expect to be able to offer the Brussels excursion to upcoming Euroculture students, but of course, COVID is something that we can do very little about. We try to, as Isabela already kind of mentioned, try to accommodate alternatives as best as possible and give you valuable opportunities, even if we can't go there. But there's only so much you can do under certain conditions. Yeah, that's just an unfortunate reality. But never doubt that we will try our best to make it a very, very valuable and interesting experience for you.
And still we had a trip to
Leeuwarden. Yeah. Yes, so we visited, in the case of Groningen, we went to a city in the surrounding region, Leeuwarden, which in 2018 was also the European capital of culture. So even though it's not Brussels, we definitely always try to give that Euroculture dimension and find it in other places, let's say. All right, so this is the part that also will become definitely more interesting for you as current viewers. So how do you apply? What do you need to do to apply? What are the requirements? So for Euroculture, you need to have a bachelor in fields related to arts, humanities, or social sciences. There's many kind of borderline cases of, well, maybe is my program, for example, in Oriental Studies might be a program that might be seemingly relevant, but you're not entirely sure. In that case, please contact us through our email at euroculture@rug.nl, or maybe check out the FAQ on our website over at euroculturemaster.eu if you're not sure. But if you are ever in doubt about whether you're eligible or not, you can reach out to us by email and we will try to answer your question as best as we can. So that's sort of the background for your academic studies that you need to have before you can join. Generally, we would like to see university bachelors. For example, in the Dutch system, you would have HBO or higher vocational education, or in Germany, you would have the Fachhochschule. We do accept students under those conditions, but please note that special conditions might apply. Something like we might need you to follow some kind of special track to make sure that you're up to the level of the program before you start. So that's something that you might need to keep in mind if you're considering applying as a student that is not exactly from a university, but from another kind of higher education institution. English proficiency is important to us. Because you'll be working and writing in academic English, you will need to have a high level of English before you start the program. What this means is we would like to see a language test of sufficient result. What a sufficient result is, I won't go into detail right now, but you can find on our website as well under the requirements section. Or if your entire bachelor program was already in English, we consider that to be enough proof, and you can simply submit a statement saying that English was in fact the language of instruction during your program, and that's also acceptable. Finally, if you're a native speaker of English, or if English is the native language of your country, and you hold that nationality, you can just submit a scan of your passport showing that nationality, and then that's also proof of English to us. So those are the 3 ways you can prove your English proficiency to us. Have a full bachelor degree that was fully taught in English. 2, have a language test result of sufficient quality. Or 3, be a native speaker. There are some other fringe cases where exemptions might apply. Just contact us by email and we will review your case. Maybe you have a lot of experience. For example, if you've lived in the UK for 10 years and you've done research assistantships and I don't know, whatever, there might be some very fringe cases where technically you don't apply, but we would like to consider that. In those cases, just send us an email and we will take a look at it. You need to submit a motivation letter. Tips for the motivation letter: don't just write, I would like to follow your program and it seems very nice. Be specific. Give us an idea of why you would like to study the program. What are some of the things that interest you the most? What professional or academic opportunities interest you? That's something that's very good to write out in the motivation letter. Also provide us your CV. So that means the full CV with all your relevant experiences. We don't need to know everything you did. So for example, if you had a job in high school, we don't need to know that. But usually everything that follows after high school might be relevant as well. But it's also up to you how you would like to present your CV. If you think a high school job is relevant, then please do put it on. That's up to you. We don't have a set format for how the CV should be presented. As long as it's professional, clearly legible, and for example, it would be even recommended to give links to websites of maybe organizations you've worked with, just so we can check, well, what is this about? Is this really interesting? Is this really relevant for what the student is doing for their application? That would make life a bit easier for us when we review your application, and that's always appreciated. Also, we would like to ask you to supply 2 reference letters. So one can be from a professional organization or institution that you've worked with, but at least one of your references needs to be submitted by somebody who supervised you doing academic work. So maybe somebody who supervised or graded a paper you wrote, maybe somebody you followed a research internship with. So we need one academic reference, and the other one might also be academic. That is fine, but at least one needs to be academic, and one can be academic, but may also be just from an employer. Also, you need to submit an academic writing sample. So just to show us that you can write in the language that is relevant to Euroculture. Show us that you have experience writing academically, because you'll have to do it a lot during the program, and it's good and important for us that you know how. So, deadlines. Maybe it's good to mention that the Erasmus Mundus scholarship deadline, as you know, most likely, is January 15, 2022. So it's not 1st of March, 1st of April, 1st of May, as you see here, because those are the deadlines for self-financing applications. Erasmus Mundus applicants need to have submitted their application by 15th of January at the latest. Also, please note that we only consider applications that have everything in there. So if we see missing information or missing files, then we usually do not spend a lot of time on your application, because in many cases we get a high volume of applicants, and we don't have the time to go over back and forth and ask you, well, could you maybe come up with this? Do you have this? Do you have this? So we consider complete applications, and if they're not complete, then in many cases you will not be eligible for the scholarship. That's also why we recommend early applications, because if you're done early and you find out you made a mistake, you can still email us and correct it, as long as it's before January 15. Any corrections after January 15 will not be considered anymore. That makes sense, I think. So these are tuition fees for EU students. If you receive the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, this does not apply to you. Euroculture will pay the fees for you on your behalf as part of your scholarship. But if you are interested in applying as a self-financing student, if you don't apply for the scholarship, then EU nationals will pay 1,475 euros per semester if you already have European insurance, for a total of 5,900 euros over the entire 2-year program. So that includes registration at all of the universities you go to during your studies. It includes one excursion. Well, Brussels excursion is maybe not entirely accurate, also because it depends on where you go. If you start in Poland, you will not be traveling to Brussels. So one excursion is part of your tuition fees, but it's not necessarily to Brussels. That's maybe good to point out. It also includes the intensive program and its accommodation, but it excludes travel costs. So you will need to pay for your own travel there, but you will receive accommodation when you go to the intensive program destination. Also, there's Erasmus Plus grants available for the second and third semester placement. But, we will also explain that to you again once we're in the program, so that's not very relevant right now. Finally, for non-European applicants, the program is more expensive. That's usually the case for non-European citizens coming into Europe. So you pay 4,500 euros per semester for a total of 18,000. This also includes insurance, by the way. Euroculture is legally obligated to insure its non-EU students through our national, through our program's policy. That's a legal requirement that we cannot get around. So if you already have insurance in Europe, that means you will either be insured twice or you'll have to pause your current program in Europe. That's unfortunately something we cannot change. But again, it includes the same things as the European applicants. It includes everything in the 2-year program. It includes registration at 2 of the universities. It includes the excursion as well as the IP. I think I've talked a lot. I think this is a good moment to maybe switch around the presentation and move around to the other part of the presentation, the more interactive Q&A part. I see there's some questions in chat. Very nice. Thank you for joining, guys. Right. Let's take a few minutes so we can prepare for the Q&A section, and then we will be right back. And we will go into a more interactive format. So if you have any questions, you'll be able to ask them in a few minutes. Right? Okay, so see you guys in a minute. Okay, I think it should be muted now. Q&A mode. All right then. Let's see. Let's turn on our mic. All right. Yes, I think everyone should be able to hear me now. Hello, everyone, from a new perspective. So welcome to the Q&A section of the presentation. I will be monitoring the chat and sort of checking if there's any new questions coming in. And once we know that, we will go over them. So first of all, I see Isabela is here. So maybe tell me something about yourself, Isabela. Where are you from? Why did you decide to join Euroculture? Maybe more general introduction.
Okay, my name is Isabela. I'm from Brazil. I'm 26 years old. My background is cultural studies. I studied cultural studies in Brazil, and I used to work with cultural policies. So I wanted to do a master's, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then I started to look on the Erasmus Mundus website, and I found the Euroculture, and I thought it was really interesting because um, I like the cultural perspective, and when I started to work with policies, I was amazed. So it's something that I really love. And then I went crazy on the website and reading everything. I read almost everything from the magazine, the Euroculture magazine. And yeah, that's how I got here.
Interesting, amazing. So let's see. I think some of the people that you could see in our chat are not visible or audible at this time. Maybe Lucille or Vasil, could you maybe make yourself heard? Hello? Of course. So, hi guys. There's going to be a bit of stream delay here and there. So maybe if you could just tell us about yourself, and we'll move on to each and one of you, and maybe we'll have the time to answer some questions.
Okay.
Lucille, do you maybe want to go first?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lucielle, and I'm currently in the University of Groningen. My second university is Uppsala, and nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Well, nice to see you guys again. Could you maybe, before we go into the questions, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to study Euroculture?
If you want, I can move on with this, or you can continue listening.
Okay. So yeah, I decided to study this program because I want to have a more diverse background. I studied and I did most of my bachelor's in Ghana, and I also did a study abroad in America. And I decided to come to Europe, and I think this program is a perfect example of getting information, getting knowledge about the whole European background, society, politics, and culture. And I think it really complements my objective of wanting to work in a multinational organization. So yeah, that's why I decided to study European studies, Euroculture. Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot. What about you, Vasil?
Hi everyone. I can't see anybody but you, Yelmer, Lucille, and Suzanne. Yeah, nice to meet you. But yeah, as for Euroculture, I think it's very nice. Balance of interest, I would say, because it contains European studies as well as politics, some culture, and it's a nice mix of everything. And it's not that narrowed down, and you can still have some flexibility in choosing some path you want to do in the future, as well as it provides you with so many choices of universities. You can choose. My second university is also Uppsala, same as Lucille's one, and now I'm studying in Groningen, and it's a very nice program from I would say almost all perspectives. So yes, it's great and highly recommended.
Great. Thanks a lot, Vasil. Right. Maybe, Susanne, maybe it's nice if you introduce yourself as well. You might not be an Erasmus Mundus student, but you are, of course, also a recent alumni of the program, so it might still be very interesting. Uh,
Yes, hello. It's very nice to meet you guys. My name is Suzanne. Yeah, I'm currently working as a student assistant for the Euroculture office, and I'm a graduate from this year, so I was a Euroculture student until September. And yeah, it's very nice to hear that you guys are liking the program. And for me, I would say I would have said the same about all of the choices that you have with the universities and the opportunities of going somewhere else, even for the third semester. Yeah, so I'm glad to hear that you guys like it because I had a good experience.
Great. It's good to hear. So, um, maybe it's good now that we've all introduced ourselves to see if there's any questions for any of us. Um, let's see. Uh, okay. Um, let's see. It's not very specific questions for us personally, but maybe it's worth pointing out that I myself am also a graduate of the Euroculture program. I graduated in 2020, so that's 1 year before Susanna. And yeah, as a job, I now work for the Euroculture program here in Groningen. And I think I also really enjoyed the program from beginning to end. I was sort of spared the worst of COVID. I think Susanna has more negative experiences with studying under COVID than I did, but there are definitely some things that we had to cancel in the past that we will not have to cancel again in the future, hopefully. Um, but yeah, I would also highly recommend the program, not only because I work for them, but also I actually believe that the program is worthwhile and that the sort of intercultural experiences that you have are very valuable, both during and after your studies here. So maybe I'd just like to ask you in general, all three of you Erasmus Mundus students, what did you do to prepare for your application for Erasmus Mundus? Uh, and what were some of the things you maybe struggled with a bit?
Okay. Well, for me, I was already applying for some programs, not on the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, but other programs. So I already had most of my documents ready, my diploma translated because you need to send it in English, right? Or
Yeah.
Dutch? Just English.
Just English, yes.
Yeah. So I already had this certified translation. So I already had all my official documents ready. And I spent most of my time talking to my professors and my references, my ex-boss and my professor, and preparing my motivation letter. So I think, at least for me, it is what I think it was the most important in my application. So I spent a long time writing my motivation letter and reading again and spend whole nights writing because I wanted to show everything I have to offer for the program. I spent a lot of time reading the websites and reading the websites not only of the program but also the universities to understand the research seminars they have, to understand the topics they teach, to make also connections with my background and my experience to show them that I was a good fit for the program. So for me, I think this was the challenge to really show myself on my motivation letter because you need to send your CV, so you don't need to make your motivation letter your CV written, not on bullet points or anything. So you need to really connect your experiences with what you want to do in the future. Maybe what you want to research on the program, and yeah, your future plans. So I think this was what I spent most of my time doing, and was the big challenge to really, yeah, show myself.
Well, I think that's like super good advice. Like this is very important. This is very good advice that you gave. You give some really concrete tips on how to write a good motivation letter. And I just want to stress that it really is an important part of your application. Like uh, the motivation letter gives us an idea of who you are and how you connect all the dots on your CV, right? So it's really good advice that you gave. Also, just your experience. It's a really good approach, so it's definitely something that I would recommend to future applicants as well, is to take a good hard look about why you want to join the program and to make sure that your motivation letter is sort of reflects your career trajectory and how you want to use what you've already built in the program and how you want to continue that after the program. If you The more concrete you can be about that, the better your application will be. So that's great advice. Um, Maybe Vasil or Lucille, do you maybe have some input here as well?
Yeah. So just like Isabella, I was also applying for other scholarships at that time. So I had my documents ready, my transcripts, my letter of English proficiency, all of those stuff. And yeah, she mentioned a lot of things that already I think should be done. And one thing I should say, it's like the past, present, and future like are all combined in my they were combined into my essay because things I have done in the past, what I was doing now, and how they connect to what I want to do in the future. I infused all of that into my my letter, and also I also talked about the fact that I was African and trying to bring a different perspective into the program. Like there's always like talking about integration in Africa. It smells behind Europe. So knowing stuff about Europe, it's I think is a great is a great stepping stone to how things could be applied in Africa. And then also, some difficulties I faced was I was working. So, you know, the motivation letter also, you need to have to take time to write it all out. But I was working, and so squeezing time and all of that, to just taking breaks to just think. So anytime I had something pop up, like I would just like type. That was what I was doing for most of the time. And finally I finished it, but it was tough balancing all of that with my working um, experience.
Thanks a lot, Lucille. It's another great thing you pointed out is that your personal motivation and also why you feel what you're doing is important, maybe, or what you plan to do with the knowledge you've gained. Also, what kind of perspective you're bringing with you. Those are all kinds of very valuable points of input that you could also put into your motivation letter. Maybe Vasil, maybe you have something else to add as well.
Yeah, sure. I forgot to mention that I'm from Belarus, and it's also brings some international perspective to my background. And the process is pretty clear and explained. And I would advise you just to look through the requirements and see if you match. And if you do, so just like mm, go into this direction, I would say. And as well, you always should understand what the program wants from you and what you will contribute to the program, of course, and something like this, I would say. So and be prepared. Just like allocate some time to do some tasks and try to be the best version of you.
Right. Thanks a lot. That makes a lot of sense. I think one thing I can summarize from all three of your perspectives on this is that it's important that you put the time into making your application personal, that you put the time into making your application reflect the best version of yourself, and that it's important that you not just, let's say, this is something that some people do, is submit the same application to 10 different programs. Maybe you write one motivation letter that you can apply to, so that you use to apply to 5 different programs. I would advise against that, while we care about every aspect of your application, so everything needs to be in order, of course. Uh, we do really appreciate that personal touch of putting in, a good motivation letter that really, like, we can clearly see the links between everything. You can see the image come together. That's something that we really appreciate from motivation letters, from applications in general. So it's definitely advisable to take your time and read through everything carefully and prepare your application properly. And as you can see, that's what leads to success for your Erasmus Mundus application.
Yeah, I also advise to start as soon as you can. Yeah, because I already had my documents, I didn't have to stress about this. But there's a lot of documents you need to get, like diploma transcripts, prepare for the English test. So it's a lot, and it can be overwhelming, especially if you're doing other things like working full time, maybe studying something else. I don't know. So it really takes some time, and you should. You can face this as a project, so you need to really have the project management skills to organize yourself and to have everything ready by the deadline. Um, yeah, and as soon as you can submit your documents, I think it's better, as you said. But yeah, you should take some time and put some effort on this.
Mm-hmm. No, thanks. Thanks a lot for that. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Um, I think it's a good thing to maybe see if there are questions in the live stream that we can go over. Usually, uh, I see there's a few. All right. Daffy Dinata asks, due to the pandemic, I cannot do my English test before the deadline. Can I still apply for the scholarship? Uh, That's a good question. Unfortunately, if your application is not complete by the 15th of January deadline, we cannot consider it for the scholarship application. So this has to do with the way in which the scholarship window applications work. They can only be open for a set amount of time in the year, and applications by the end of the window need to be complete. This is not only because we just don't like giving you time or space, but this has to do with the fact that these scholarships are funded by the European Commission, and we have to follow their legislation and their rules in this respect. And well, based on that, we have set the requirement that you cannot submit any documents after that 15th of January deadline, because at this point we want to consider all applications in their entirety, and we cannot afford to spend a lot of time going back and forth with individual applicants, asking them, could you maybe submit this, could you maybe submit that. It needs to be complete by 15th of January. So my advice to you is maybe there are some language courses that offer emergency slots in case you have a very urgent need for a language test. I would maybe urge you to look into this if that's an option. Um, yeah, I think that's about the best advice I can give you, is try and find a way to maybe get an emergency test in somewhere earlier.
For this year, you're not expecting the population to
Uh, Right. Yeah. Yes. I would say yes.
Sorry, is your
No.
last
This.
year due to COVID? we could apply with the home edition. But
Yeah, I mean there are still places in the world where we are faced with actual lockdowns, and the fact that some countries, it's still very hard for people in some non-European countries to move around and get their test results. So I would say yes, this year we still accept the home edition of the language test. So yes, you can also do the online version, although you do also need to book a slot for that as well. So that's something. So if you want to get the TOEFL home edition, you can get that one as well. It does need to be the full version of the test, right? So no like small practice version. It needs to be a full paid test. So that's important, but it can be the home edition. So thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. Let's see. Can the reference letter be from the job employer that is not directly linked to the Euroculture program, or is it better to get both letters from academic supervisors? Well, that's an interesting question because it depends on you, right? Do you want to present yourself as more of a professional? Uh, are you more interested in the professional track in the program? Are you maybe more interested in finding a job within a specific field? If that's your motivation, then it would make more sense to get that professional motivation, that professional reference in there. Of course, if you are more interested in academia, it might be more worthwhile to have two academic reference letters. In any case, um, there is no, so it's not easy to say if there's one preferred option, right? As long as you meet the minimum requirements, so one is academic and one is not academic, but still like from a substantial employer, um, then everything is fine as long as it meets your standards, right? It doesn't help you present yourself in the best way. That's maybe a good way to think about it. Um, I hope that answers your question.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I can also add. Well, mine, I got a reference letter from my boss, so I think it's not going to be a problem.
yeah, but I would say that if you think your work is not truly related and you cannot make any connection with your future, maybe you should think if you have any other experience that could add to your motivation letter and to present yourself as a recruiter student. Uh, I think at least be somehow connected, and from a professional perspective, it's better to have a reference letter. Yeah, I don't know if you think the same, especially because you know the selection process, but if you ask me privately, I will answer this. That I think should be at least somehow connected with what you're saying on your motivation letter and how you want to present yourself to to who is evaluating your application.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. So yeah, it's important that your motivation letter. I mean, you can argue that any professional experience is in some way relevant to your culture, right? It's a matter of how you present. If you feel the link is very indirect, you know, you can focus on those things that are there. You know, you can also say that, you know, maybe it's not the most directly relevant, but I think it's important for this, this, and this. You could say that as well in your motivation letter, maybe. So it's hard to say based on just, you know, I think the link might be a bit indirect, but it could still very well be fine, right? It depends on what you do with it.
It could have shaped you in some way that made you decide to pursue the Euroculture master's degree. So yeah, it depends on how you
Absolutely.
manage on your motivation letter. So you take time to explain this. So even though it's not directly related, it taught me that. I don't know.
Absolutely. That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
Lucielle, I think you were talking
for
of
me
Vasil.
as
Yeah.
well. I just want to add that I had two academic recommendations, so it's also fine.
Yes. Yeah, and I think Lucille said also she had one from an employer and one uh, from an academic. And so, so there's not one size fits all. Let's say there's not one solution for everything. Uh, it's about what you want to do and how you want to present yourself. But both a professional and academic, or academic is fine. What you just can't do is two professional recommendations, because this is a university master program. You do need at least one academic recommendation, right? Because we need to see that you know what you're doing in an academic setting, and we need somebody to, let's say, give us an impression of what that would look like for you. Yeah. Let's see if there's any other questions in the live stream. Uh, okay. Well, you're welcome. So there's no other questions at the moment. So maybe Susanna, could you maybe talk us through your experience, after graduation so far? I mean, I know you've worked with us for a bit, but maybe what was it like for you after graduation? Maybe also you have some interesting anecdotes about where your peers went after they graduated.
Yes, I do. Well, for me, I was most people finished their master's thesis by 1st of August, I believe. That's where most of them finished. So they had a bit longer to look for a job. So there's a lot of my peers. I know of some of my peers who are working in Brussels right now. There's apparently quite a nice Euroculture sort of network, like not official or anything, but I know of friends of mine who have met other Euroculture students who are also now working in Brussels. So apparently Brussels is a big, great hotspot for Euroculture students. I know of some of them who work in banks, some of them work in, well, initiatives. Some of them work at actually like European EU institutions. Lots of that. Then yeah, for me, because I was kind of late. I finished only by the end of August. Yeah, I wasn't looking for a long time, and then I got the opportunity to work for the Euroculture office. So I thought, yes, I want to do that. Because for me, I wanted to do Euroculture, and I did Euroculture in a way where like I did the research track and all of that because I am mostly interested in the academic part of it. So everyone who has done research internships, not research, who has done internships, has had a different experience from mine. But I was always more focused on the academic part. So for me, working at the university is a great start, basically. So yeah, I don't know that I could tell you something about. I know that for Yelmer has already talked about the kind of COVID related in uncertainties, basically. For me, I would say my year has been mostly affected by the pandemic. It was 3 semesters out of 4. But yeah, for my part, I can say that they were in all eventualities they were always trying a lot to make it as normal as possible. So I had most of my classes still in person, when I know that in other European countries, at least, the other universities were often just shifted everything online, and I had the opportunity of still going to classes and all of that. So yeah, there was a lot of that, a lot of asking, are you okay? Can we help you with anything? Because, people are having issues not being able to go home or even, see family, especially those from like outside of Europe. Within Europe was hard for a while as well, but just, if you have to leave Europe, then, there's no guarantee of getting back and all of that. And there was a lot of like trying to help students individually. I don't know if Lucille or Vasil have had experiences with that yet, but yeah, at least I know of the people in Groningen, there was a lot of, trying to speak to or trying to be there for people who might be struggling. Yeah, so just maybe, yeah, know that it's once you're in there's a lot of kind of focus on individuality and what fits best for you. That's why you can choose to do an internship because you want to work later at a bank or at one of the European institutions, or in your own country an institution that has to do with Europe, or if you want to go to more into more of an academic part like I did, so you do a research track and you can, learn more about the practicalities of research and all of that. So yeah, it, I can speak more, but I think I said everything.
No, thanks a lot, Susanna. That's
Thank you.
really great. And I also heard that there's a lot of Euroculture students in Brussels at the moment.
Yeah,
Some people from my year as well. They've been meeting up with like people from I think your year as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, there's really like that's an interest. It's an interesting phenomenon, the Brussels bubble. It's like especially if you end up working in like EU institutions, this is really like. A lot of like EU politicians and things, they like to end up in this kind of Euroculture or not necessarily like European Union bubble where they just
yeah.
work and hang out with the same people a lot and you kind of like lose touch with the rest of reality. But yeah,
But you get to see if that's something for you as a Euroculture student. When if you want to do an internship for the third semester, there's a lot of people who go to European institutions. We have, I don't know if you got the list yet. We have a list where you get like kind of examples of where Euroculture students in the years before have done internships. There's a lot of EU institutions or just institutions in Brussels that have had Euroculture students before, so you can try and experience that for yourself. It's yeah. I was in Brussels for a few months, and it's 100% a bubble. It's very interesting. I don't know how to explain it. It's a thing.
thanks a lot, Susanna. Let me just check to see if there's any new questions that came in. Otherwise, ah, right. An interesting question again from Davi Dinata. Is there any interview for the Euroculture program? Um, so the answer to that is, for the most part, no. So we don't have a special interview procedure as part of the application. So we don't ask you to come in and maybe have a Skype call or a Zoom call or something like that with any of us. But um, there are some fringe cases where we see something that is quite peculiar in somebody's application, or if we really have like a lot of questions about someone, we sometimes do ask them to maybe join us for a short Zoom call to maybe explain a little bit why they joined the program. This might be, for example, the case if I don't know, somebody who's quite a bit older than the average student would join. So maybe if somebody who's like 60 years old or something, when they apply to Euroculture, we usually like to ask them, well, okay, that's interesting. That's possible, of course, but maybe explain a little bit about why you want to do this now, let's say. Because, of course, many usually when you study a master's, it will be a bit earlier in your life, right? Um, that doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means like sometimes if we want to know a little bit more about you before we're sure about your application, we will ask you to have an interview with us. After you've been accepted, though, for example, for the Erasmus Mundus scholarship holders, we do schedule calls one on one with each Erasmus Mundus scholarship holder to walk them through the procedure a little bit. So we get in touch with you through email about, well, okay, so congratulations, you're holding the scholarship. What do you do next? Right? So those kinds of steps, we take you through email. We try to be very approachable and say, well, if you have a question, just email us. If you have a question, just, we can talk about it over Google Meets, I guess is what I usually use. But yeah, we try to be approachable and sort of, it's not really interviews, I guess, but we try to be, yeah, approachable.
Yeah, I think that's also why you need to work on your motivation letter because you usually don't have a second round to explain yourself. So it's really useful to work on it. And as you're saying, I think also the staff here and the recruiter in general are really kind and you can reach them. So during my application, I sent Yelmer a lot of emails because I had a lot of doubts and questions and everything. So yeah, I think you can use those sources you have available. For example, sending an email to Yelmer like, "Hey, I don't know I if my bachelor is enough," or yeah, it's really helpful. So you should use it like not too much, not spamming.
And, well, I don't believe, like, maybe
Yeah.
just, I don't believe in stupid questions, but I do believe in redundant questions. So sometimes there's a question you could have, found the answer to on the website very easily. I will still answer you, but if you want to stay on my good side, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm fine. Sometimes people misread things. It doesn't really matter to me all that much. You can send me an email. I try not to. I'm very, easygoing about emails. Don't worry about it.
That's true. I think also
Exactly. It's true.
documents are helpful, yes, and
Yeah.
the whole process is
Yeah.
also. I agree with Isabella that she said that think about your application because you'll have like this round as the most important anyways, and yes, it's so important to explain all these and as much as you can in your application documents why and like answer all questions you have. And yeah, if you have some questions, yeah, your culture is very approachable and helpful. That's 100%.
I should maybe add here that even
Yeah.
though we try to be very
I should
helpful,
disagree.
sorry,
No, I was just like agreeing to what Vasil said. Like, really easy to get in contact with you, and it's just so helpful.
well, good to hear that it's still working, the whole system. Great. But yeah, I should note that even though we try to be helpful, we also do expect quite a few things from you, right? I mean, you do have to do quite a few complicated administrative procedures, like especially if you're coming to Groningen, you get it maybe a bit rougher than some of the other ones even. You have to do a lot of registration procedures, getting your visa, getting your residence permit. I know for a fact that these are can be quite stressful procedures, uh, and there's only so much that we can do to help you with that. So um, that's something that you should be prepared for, is that even after you're accepted, there will be a bit of we can't take it all out of your hands. Let's say there are still a few things that you definitely need to do for yourself that will take some time. uh, um, Maybe it's interesting. I mean, your perspective is definitely very Groningen centric here, but maybe you could tell a little bit about what it was like for you to get like the visa, to get the residence permit. Did you feel the procedure worked well? Did you have a lot of problems, or are there some things that future students should really watch out for? Maybe that's something.
Yeah, for me, it worked well. The Euroculture staff and the Groningen University really helped me because they do all the application and then they just tell you that your visa was approved and then you can go to the consulate to give them your passport and get a visa. So in the Brazilian perspective, I don't know how it works in Ghana or in Belarus or any other country, but for me, it was
Yeah.
everything okay. I didn't have any problem. What I faced that there were not so many slots available for the consulate due to COVID. Um, so yeah, I was kind of worried about this that I wouldn't be able to submit my passport in time, but I was lucky to get a less time spot. So yeah, it worked for me. And also for my second semester, I'm going to Krakow in the next semester. They are already helping me with the visa that I need. So yeah, I think the staff here are really helpful. So they do everything they can to give you the support you need. But yeah, you need to do a lot of stuff by your own, and to do some research and to contact consulates, embassies, whatever you need. But they will always be there to give you the support you need and to share some past experiences too. Yeah, this is what I can share.
Great, thanks a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was pretty smooth for me as well because typically visa applications here it's I don't know it's I just feel sometimes it's really tough hearing people talk about their experiences, but um, it was really okay for me. And of course, I had to like call the embassy as well to see if um, they were doing interviews and stuff. So of course, you have to make your own initiatives as well. But altogether, it was quite easy, I should say. I just received my yeah, my documents and stuff, and then I booked an appointment and then went, and yeah, it was also smooth. And also for my second semester I'm going to Uppsala, and I have already received um, documents for processing of visa and all of that, so I think they're pretty helpful. Yeah.
As for me, I think it's wide, understandable process, and I would say just like something that you need to do and to walk through. And yeah, when you arrive to Groningen, it's also requires some steps from you, but it's I would say kind of explain and pretty much simple.
Right. Let's see if there are any other questions coming in right now. Yes, there is. Uh, will the research topic thesis be given to me to write on as an applicant, or do I have to pick a topic myself? You pick the topic yourself, so that's actually a short answer. Yes. You pick your own research topics for papers that you write during the program. And of course, for your application, I would recommend submitting papers that are relevant to Euroculture in some way, but it doesn't have to be, because what we are most interested in is your academic writing skills when we review your documentation. So as long as the diploma is relevant and the academic writing sample is good, then it's already quite fine. So the topic of your writing sample doesn't need to be super relevant to Euroculture necessarily, because that's not what we're looking for during that part of the application. I saw there was a second question there as well. Also, in the course of the webinar, you talked about choosing the two schools before applying as an Erasmus Mundus applicant. Can you speak more on that? Of course. Right. So what happens is, when you apply as any Euroculture student, both self-financing or Erasmus Mundus, you choose one of three So you choose up to three universities. You have to choose three. So that includes your first priority university, your second priority university, and third priority university. And as a self-financing student, what would happen is you would get assessed, and based on maybe the available places at a university, they will give you one of your three choices that you made during your application. For Erasmus Mundus applicants, actually both the first and the second semester will be chosen from the three priorities you submit during your application most of the time. But there are some cases we try to give students their preferred places as much as possible, but based on the scores, it might be necessary to redistribute some students to universities that they didn't originally choose from, or maybe had as priority three. So I would say that it matters quite a lot which universities you sign up for, but we distribute the Erasmus Mundus scholarship holders. Sometimes we send them to universities, which, for example, if one university is very popular, we might send them to another university that is less popular, just to balance things out, because we like to have Erasmus Mundus scholarship students at every one of our partner universities. But usually that's not all that necessary. We don't have to mess with it too much, but it might be the case that Erasmus Mundus scholarship holders sign a contract based on 2 destinations that are presented to them by us. So we review all the applications, we come up with a list of students that will receive the scholarship, we have a list of where they want to go, and we will try to give them those places as much as possible. Sometimes we have to make a few changes here and there, and then we present that offer to the student, and they can choose whether they accept that or not. And I should say it's not possible to change the destinations we offer you, so it's a take it or leave it kind of situation, right? So we present you these destinations, we give you the opportunity to get a scholarship in Europe and study here for 2 years, and it's up to you whether you accept that offer or not. Usually people are very happy to accept the offer, but there are some students who really would be disappointed about not going to any X, Y, or Z university. And in those cases, they forfeit their spot and it goes to the next person. That's the harsh reality of it. Unfortunately, we don't have the space to make a lot of accommodations for that destination. But as a self-financing student, usually, you have to pay for it yourself, but it's quite a bit more likely that you get the destinations that you want, 100% certainly. Because usually the amount, we don't have to play with the selection as much. We'd like to give students their first choice wherever possible, but it's not always possible. I hope that answers your question in a not too roundabout way. Do you have something?
Yeah. In my personal experience, I got my first and second university, but it's really important for you to do research on the university, on the research topics, the university you want to go, if it's aligned with your expectations and your future plans. For example, I chose Groningen as my first semester because I think it will give me a solid foundation on Europe, and it really does. It's really good. And in my second semester, I'm going to Krakow because they have a Latin America approach. It's one of their research topics, but there are different topics, so you need to read carefully the Euroculture website and also the university's website. But you need to see if what you're choosing is aligned with your future plans, and also it will be one of your choices for your last semester. So it's important to maybe go to university to choose universities that you know it will give you the support you need to write your thesis, for example. But on your motivation letter, you should mention the 3 choices. In my case, I wrote specifically that my first semester I went to spend in Groningen, my second in Krakow, and Delsto would be my last choice. So I was lucky enough to be allocated on the first and second university on the first and second semester, as I mentioned on my motivation letter. It's not always the case, but I know you do everything you can to try to allocate on the students' choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I got both of my universities as well, but I didn't include it, but I guess it still made up for it anyway. And Diosto was also my third choice. That's why I was laughing.
So that's more or less the answer. You give a top 3 of universities you want to go to. And for Erasmus Mundus scholarship students, we set semester 1 and 2 in stone. You can still make choices for 3 and 4. For self-financing students, they only decide 1 semester at a time. So, for example, they get information about where they want to go in their second semester during the first semester. So they will start there in maybe February of 2022 for the current group, and they got the information maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago. So they usually will have enough time to maybe find student housing, these kinds of things, prepare their visa applications if they're not European. Let's see if you responded to that. I can't have the chat open at the same time, unfortunately. Okay, there is actually a few more questions. Right. If I do volunteer work outside of my country, but not EU country for months before the deadline program. Is it okay? E.g., Australia or Asian countries. I think what you're referring to relates to the 12 months rule and whether certain professional experiences matter for, let's say, studying for whether applying as a program country applicant or a partner country applicant. So, no, it does. If you did internships outside of the EU, they do not count towards the 12 months rule. So you can go to Australia, for example, without any effect on whether you apply as a partner country student or a program country student. Yeah, so no, that shouldn't matter for your application. Let's see if there's. Yeah, I'm in the 7th semester and still in the process of my thesis. I think I could not apply this year to the program. Well, that might be the case. I don't know your specific situation, but you would need to be graduated by January 15th. And what this means is you would need to have all your grades in, and you would need to hold at the very least a formal statement that you have graduated. It's okay, we understand that sometimes the diplomas aren't ready yet. That's fine. But we do need some kind of statement, a written statement by a university official that shows that you've graduated. So if you haven't graduated by the January 15th deadline, unfortunately, you cannot apply to the scholarship this year, and you would have to wait until next round that would open in October of 2022. Yeah. Let's see. Would you guys give me some advice about what I could do during a year for preparing this program instead of document requirements? Do I need to have international work experience for additional points? I could tell something about this from sort of a more admissions perspective, but maybe you guys could tell. Do you have international, let's say, work experience? Did you have these kinds of experiences before you applied? Or
Yeah, I did one semester in Portugal.
Well, yeah.
And I think I could use this, like my international experience, to show that I was ready to integrate an international classroom. Um, I don't know in the admission process if this gives you extra points, but I think anything can be useful volunteer work even in your own country. For me, I had a long time of professional experience, internships, and after I graduated. And I also had the international experience when I did one semester in Portugal, and I also worked in some cinema festivals, so I had a volunteer experience too. But yeah, since we don't get the grades of our admission process, so I don't know if this was really an extra point or not, but it was definitely something that I mentioned to show them that I already have this experience of international integration and cultural exchange. Yeah, so for me, I use this as a pro, as a good thing in my application.
Yeah, me also. I also did a study abroad in the US as well, and I also did some volunteer work as well. Um, so I included all of that in um, my letter, that I had this already multicultural experience, and I was looking forward to do more of that and just integrate more in a European sense. And yeah, with the volunteer work, like there was this refugee work that we did, and I did some teaching in some kindergarten schools. I included all of that into my letter because, like Isabella said, we have just one chance to prove ourselves. So I made sure to include all of that into my my piece.
I would also say that all experience is relevant in some case, and probably it's also relevant that I also did my Erasmus Plus semester abroad in Germany. So I think anything relevant is helpful, and you just need to give this um, look on you as a future Euroculture student somehow. Like it's depends, I think, on the case, but yes.
I think it also depends on how you show this to who's evaluating your application. It's not just writing, oh, I did 1 semester in Portugal. Yeah, so what? What did you learn from this? How this shaped you? What kind of experiences did you have? So yeah, it's just not the application is not just telling them all your experiences, but how this impact your life, your professional career, your academic background. So it it also it always depends on how you write this and how you present yourself, as we've been talking a lot, but it's this. I think this is the most important. How you present yourself. Of course, you're not going to lie anything. Don't do this because they will know right away if you're making something up. But you need to really work on your writing skills to well, for me, I have a kind of imposter syndrome. So I was like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not never be accepted on this program because it's a top rated masters. And I was like, no, this is not going to happen. But I spent some time writing my motivation letter and like getting to know myself and everything that I did and how this shaped me and how I got my job that I was working with and why did I choose that job. So it was uh, I spent a lot of time looking at myself and where I was and what I was doing and what I liked. So yeah, you need to understand yourself so you can show yourself. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely a good point. Yeah, it's really about if you show that bit of self reflection, that makes your application like a lot stronger. So in terms of if you really like go back to the core of the question. So what can I do to prepare for an application if I want to do it next year? So as you can tell, volunteer experience is good, professional experience is good. Another suggestion that might be useful to you is maybe learning a European language if you have the time. We value speaking multiple languages as well. That's something that might be useful to you. Like maybe if you wanted to learn maybe the language of the country you're most interested in, spend some time doing that. Maybe get a certificate. Like you don't really have to like submit them to us all the specific certificates, but if you write in your motivation letter, yeah, I speak this language, I speak this language, that actually does help your application a bit as well. Speaking multiple languages is a useful thing in this intercultural setting, right? Well, the language that we use for most of the classes is English. Um, Knowing multiple languages shows that you have this interest in a multicultural setting and that you are able to negotiate that and maybe understand people from different perspectives. Speaking another language is also a good way of learning and learning to appreciate other cultures, right? So that's what I would say is also useful to do. So professional, academic, that's maybe another dimension. Like all professional and academic experiences can be useful. If you have like a conference or two that you went to or like a special workshop, just write those down in your CV. And if you did like 3 in a year or something, it shows like, oh wow, they did all these professional. They did like an internship. They did a conference there. They did all these things. That does create this broad profile that can be very interesting to us as the admissions team, let's say. So yes, what you can do to prepare is advance your own career goals outside of Euroculture, learn languages, gain academic and professional experiences, and put them on your CV so you can show them to us next year. I think that would be the short answer. Um, Thank you, guys. It helps me a lot. Well, you're very welcome. Um, well, Davi, I now know your name. I hope to see you in the application round next year. I can't give you bonus points or anything, but I know you were there. Um, let's see. Do we have? I think because we're also kind of running close to the end of our time here. Do we have any interesting closing remarks or advice that we want to give to the students who might be interested in your culture? Oh no, what's going on? I lost my connection. Is this working? Oh no. Let's see. Let's try to rejoin. See if that works. Oh no. I should not show this on stream. Let's see. Let me just try to reconnect here. There we go. Oh no, that's the wrong account. Oh no. It's a disaster. It's a disaster.
Never mind, just like seal you.
Okay, he's back.
Okay, sorry. I think our connection faded out for a second there. Let's go back to Q&A mode. Yeah, okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just about to say closing remarks. I don't know what you've got. So, are there any kind of like closing remarks or things that you want to give as advice to students before we close the session?
For me, I would just say I heard about the imposter syndrome from you guys, but also in my class. So I feel like, yeah, like don't let the imposter syndrome stop you. I feel like that's kind of a quality that your culture students seem to have, where everyone's like, I'm not good enough for this. Why am I here? And so if you think that, then definitely apply because you're probably good enough. You probably just worry too much. So that's good.
Preach.
Yeah, I would say you can spend some time on your application and use all the resources you have. Yammer, you can reach me on LinkedIn if you want. But also, if you have some time to connect with people to get to know the universities, because maybe one university has a style of teaching that it's not how you are used to or you don't like. Um, so yeah, just spend some time on it. Don't let the imposter syndrome get you, even though it will, but then you should write everything you want to say and then you go back the other day. You can ask your girlfriend, boyfriend, mom, sister, dad, friends, I don't know, to get to read your application, your motivation letter, so they will know you, they will understand what you're trying to say. And yeah, do a lot of research, use the resources online that you have. There are a lot of pages about the program, and just go for it. Don't let the imposter syndrome stop you. I think it's a really good program. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm happy that I got this scholarship because otherwise it would not be possible for me at least to be here. So yeah, it's a good opportunity to uh, do network to learn. I'm learning a lot. It's overwhelming, but it's also really good. The staff are really great, so I would definitely encourage you to apply. Don't miss the deadline because yeah, I heard some people miss when I was talking to some residents. Um, so yeah, just prepare yourself, but go for it. Yeah. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, can I just interject for 1 second before? Please don't miss the deadline because if it's even like 1 minute over 12, I toss your application away. Like you're not even considered.
And consider the time zone because in Brazil I was 5 hours apart. So it's really important to consider
It's
which time zone. I think
it's Central European time is how we measure this. So I recommend just submitting this on the 14th.
Yeah.
That in that case you're safe. But like anything that is past the as soon as it's even 1 minute past 12, if I because we can see when your application comes in, right? If it's even 1 minute past 12, it goes into the trash bin, which is such a shame if you put a lot of work into it. So please submit on time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just better if you don't even have to like submit at the very last moment. Just, you know, do a lot of reflection and make sure, well, I gave myself the deadline of December, so I finished my application in December. So I was quite the early bird. And of course, it's very easy to doubt yourself, but just know you can do it, and just getting this like gives so much confidence. And I'm so glad I got this scholarship as well. Like, I love every moment of it. I mean, there's ups and downs, there's some difficulties getting the whole process, but it's worth it in the end. It's all worth it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to tell you. Give it a shot and all the best.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it, and of course, just try your best and do all required. Listen to our advices, and everything should be fine.
Right. Those are some very good closing words for this good session. So thanks to everyone joining in the live stream, but also thanks a lot to Suzanne, Lucille, Vasil, and Isabela for joining us today. They took this time out of their day to help you with your application. So be sure to thank them from the bottom of your heart if you ever get into the program and run into them next year. You know. So, in case you maybe missed a part of this live stream, please note that we will upload it as a video later on our YouTube channel as well. I will post this on our Facebook and our social media later once the video is all finished. So you will be able to rewatch certain parts if you think you wanted to hear a little bit more about something specific. Please note that we'll also be doing another webinar later in the year. I might be asking some different students to join us then to have a bit of variety. But of course, it has nothing to do with the quality of your answers or the pleasant nature of your company. But yeah, so I just wanted to thank everyone, you as students who joined and you as prospective applicants for joining our session today. And we hope to see you sometime in the future in Euroculture. I wish you all a great day, and I hope to hear and receive your applications sometime soon in the future. All right.
Good luck, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Good
Have a
luck.
nice day.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.